People often believe that the key to talking to women is finding the perfect question, the perfect line, or the perfect strategy to keep the conversation alive. In reality, the more desperately you search for the right words, the more nervous and unnatural you become. Confidence is rarely communicated by what you ask. It is communicated by how you carry yourself, how comfortable you are with silence, how clearly you express your own thoughts, and how little you depend on another person's approval to feel valuable. When someone enters a conversation hoping to be accepted at any cost, every sentence becomes a hidden request for validation. That subtle need is usually more noticeable than any clever words you could ever say. Before you try to create attraction with someone else, you must create stability within yourself. People naturally respond to individuals who appear emotionally grounded. This does not mean acting arrogant or pretending to be above everyone else. True confidence is quiet. It does not announce itself. It comes from knowing your values, pursuing your own goals, and understanding that your worth is not decided by the reaction of a single person. When you approach a conversation from this mindset, you are no longer trying to win someone over. You are simply discovering whether the two of you genuinely enjoy each other's company. Many people make the mistake of placing the other person on a pedestal. The moment this happens, the conversation becomes unbalanced. Instead of speaking naturally, they begin calculating every sentence, worrying about saying the wrong thing, and constantly searching for signs of approval. This pressure creates tension that affects everything from body language to tone of voice. A relaxed conversation cannot exist when one person feels they must perform perfectly. The healthiest approach is to remember that every meaningful relationship is built on mutual respect. Neither person is above the other. Both are simply getting to know someone new. Instead of thinking, how can I make this person like me? Ask yourself, am I being authentic? Authenticity creates consistency. When your words match your personality, your confidence becomes believable because it is real. You no longer need to remember a script or rely on memorized techniques. You can talk about your interests, your experiences, your ambitions, or something you genuinely noticed in the moment. Conversations become more engaging when they are based on sincere observations rather than rehearsed lines. Presence is another quality that people often underestimate. In today's world, many conversations are distracted by phones, wandering attention, or anxiety about what to say next. Real presence means giving your full attention to the moment. Listen carefully, notice expressions, maintain appropriate eye contact, and avoid mentally preparing your next sentence while the other person is speaking. When someone feels heard and respected, the conversation naturally becomes more comfortable for both of you. Self-respect also means accepting that not every conversation will lead to a connection, and that is perfectly normal. Personalities differ, interests differ, and timing differs. If someone is not interested in continuing the conversation, that does not automatically reflect your value as a person. Mature confidence allows you to accept rejection without resentment or self-doubt. You remain polite, respectful, and move forward without trying to convince someone to change their mind. This mindset protects your self-esteem and allows you to approach future conversations without unnecessary fear. Baby language often communicates more than words. Standing comfortably, maintaining a relaxed posture, smiling naturally when appropriate, and speaking at a steady pace all contribute to an impression of confidence. Nervous habits such as constantly checking your phone, fidgeting excessively, interrupting, or rushing through every sentence can unintentionally communicate anxiety. Small adjustments in posture and breathing can make you appear calmer while also helping you genuinely feel calmer. It is equally important to respect the other person's comfort and boundaries. A confident individual does not pressure, manipulate, or ignore signs of discomfort. Respect is one of the strongest foundations of any positive interaction. If someone seems distracted, uninterested, or wishes to end the conversation, acknowledge that gracefully. Confidence includes the ability to leave a conversation with dignity, rather than forcing it to continue. Developing confidence is not about becoming fearless overnight. It is about repeatedly placing yourself in ordinary social situations, learning from each experience, and gradually becoming more comfortable expressing who you are. Every conversation, whether successful or awkward, teaches something valuable about communication, patience, and self-awareness. Over time, these experiences build genuine confidence that cannot be faked because it is supported by real growth. The strongest impression you can make is not through clever tricks or rehearsed techniques. It comes from being emotionally secure, genuinely interested in the conversation, respectful of the other person's perspective, and comfortable with yourself regardless of the outcome. When you stop seeking approval and begin expressing your authentic personality with calm confidence, conversations become less about proving your worth and more about creating honest human connection. People often believe that a great conversation depends on asking one question after another. While thoughtful questions have their place, a conversation can quickly feel like an interview if every sentence demands an answer. When you rely entirely on questions, you place all the responsibility on the other person to keep the interaction alive. A more engaging approach is to contribute your own thoughts, observations, experiences, and stories. Instead of trying to extract interesting answers, become someone who naturally brings interesting ideas into the conversation. Every meaningful conversation is a balance between listening and sharing. Many people focus so much on saying the right thing that they forget conversations are not tests to pass. They are opportunities to exchange perspectives. If you only ask questions without revealing anything about yourself, the other person never gets the chance to understand who you are. Genuine connection grows when both people gradually share their personalities, rather than one person constantly interviewing the other. One of the simplest ways to improve your communication is to notice the world around you. Every environment provides material for conversation. A unique building, an interesting event, a memorable experience from your day, a book you recently finished, or an unexpected observation can all become natural starting points. These kinds of comments often feel more spontaneous than a list of prepared questions. They invite the other person to respond without making them feel pressured. Stories are especially powerful because they reveal character. A short story about overcoming a challenge, learning a new skill, making a mistake, or discovering something unexpected tells people far more about you than a dozen factual questions ever could. The purpose is not to impress anyone or exaggerate your experiences. It is simply to give the other person a glimpse into your personality. Authentic stories are memorable because they contain emotion, humor, curiosity, or lessons that others can relate to. Confidence is also reflected in how you express your opinions. This does not mean arguing or insisting that your viewpoint is always correct. It means being comfortable saying, "I enjoyed that movie because of the characters," or "I've always found traveling teaches more than reading about a place." These statements encourage conversation because they give the other person something meaningful to respond to. Instead of forcing an answer through a question, you create an opening through your own perspective. Many people fear expressing opinions because they worry about disagreement. Yet respectful disagreement is often more engaging than constant agreement. If someone has a different perspective, It creates an opportunity to understand each other's thinking. Mature conversations are built on curiosity rather than competition. You do not need to win every discussion. You simply need to communicate honestly while respecting the other person's viewpoint. Another important aspect of speaking with purpose is slowing down. Nervousness often causes people to speak too quickly, jump from topic to topic, or fill every moment with unnecessary words. Speaking at a calm pace gives your thoughts greater clarity and allows the conversation to breathe. It also communicates that you are comfortable with yourself and do not feel pressured to entertain constantly. Silence is not something to fear. Brief pauses are a normal part of natural conversation. Many people panic the moment there is a few seconds of quiet and immediately ask another random question just to avoid the silence. In reality, those short moments often allow both people to think, smile, or naturally transition into another topic. Being comfortable with occasional silence demonstrates emotional composure rather than insecurity. Humor can also make conversations more enjoyable, but it works best when it feels natural. Trying too hard to be funny often creates unnecessary pressure. Instead, allow humor to arise from everyday situations, playful observations, or light-hearted stories. The goal is not to perform like a comedian, but to create a relaxed atmosphere where both people feel comfortable. Being genuinely interested in another person remains important, but interest can be shown without turning every sentence into a question. You can respond to something they mentioned by relating it to your own experience or sharing a thoughtful observation. This creates a rhythm where both people contribute equally instead of one person constantly asking and the other constantly answering. Strong communication also depends on emotional awareness. Pay attention to the other person's reactions. If they seem excited about a topic, allow the conversation to develop naturally instead of abruptly changing subjects. If they appear uncomfortable or uninterested, gracefully shift the discussion. Effective communicators adapt without forcing conversations in a predetermined direction. Purposeful speaking is not about dominating the conversation or talking endlessly about yourself. Balance remains essential. Share enough that people understand your personality while leaving space for them to contribute. The most engaging conversations feel like a game of catch rather than a lecture or an interrogation. Each person offers something, receives something, and builds upon what was shared before. Perhaps the greatest mistake people make is believing they must constantly impress others with clever words. In reality, sincerity is far more memorable than perfection. Speaking with purpose means expressing your thoughts honestly, sharing experiences that matter to you, and allowing your personality to emerge naturally. When you stop chasing approval through endless questions and instead communicate with authenticity, confidence, and genuine curiosity, conversations become richer, more relaxed, and far more enjoyable for everyone involved. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people see it as a sign that something has gone wrong in a conversation, and they rush to fill every empty moment with words. In reality, silence is a natural part of communication. A person who is comfortable with brief pauses often appears calmer, more thoughtful, and more confident than someone who speaks nonstop. The ability to remain relaxed without constantly talking demonstrates emotional control. It shows that your confidence does not depend on keeping the conversations alive every second. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they must entertain the other person at all times. This mindset creates unnecessary pressure. Every pause begins to feel like failure, and every second of quiet feels like an emergency that must be fixed immediately. As a result, people start speaking without purpose. They repeat themselves, ask random questions, interrupt natural moments, or say things they do not truly mean simply because they are uncomfortable with silence. Ironically, this constant need to fill the space often weakens the conversation instead of improving it. Confident communicators understand that pauses give conversations room to breathe. After someone shares a thought, a few moments of silence allow both people to process what was said. It signals that you are listening rather than simply waiting for your turn to speak. People generally appreciate conversations where they feel heard, and thoughtful pauses can contribute to that feeling. Instead of rushing to respond, take a moment to consider your words. Responses that come from reflection often carry more weight than those delivered impulsively. Patience is closely connected to emotional maturity. When you are patient, you are not reacting out of anxiety. You are choosing your words deliberately. This calm approach creates a more relaxed atmosphere because the other person also feels less pressure to perform. Conversations become more genuine when neither person feels they must constantly produce clever or impressive responses. Silence can also reflect self-assurance. Someone who is secure in themselves does not feel compelled to prove their intelligence, humor, or value every minute. They are comfortable allowing moments of quiet without assuming that the interaction is failing. This quiet confidence is often more noticeable than dramatic displays of charisma. People tend to trust those who appear composed, especially in situations where others might become nervous. Being comfortable with silence does not mean becoming distant or emotionally unavailable. It simply means recognizing that communication includes both speaking and listening. Listening is an active skill. Pay attention to the other person's words, tone, expressions, and body language. Notice what seems to energize them, what they enjoy discussing, and what topics they approach with hesitation. These observations often tell you far more than a rapid sequence of questions ever could. Another valuable habit is resisting the urge to interrupt. Many interruptions happen not because someone is rude, but because they fear forgetting their own thought. However, allowing the other person to finish before responding communicates respect. It shows that you value what they are saying enough to let them complete their idea. Conversations where both people feel respected naturally become more enjoyable and meaningful. Mystery is sometimes misunderstood as pretending to be secretive or emotionally distant. Healthy mystery is much simpler than that. It means not revealing everything about yourself immediately. Every meaningful relationship develops gradually. There is no need to tell your entire life story within the first conversation. By sharing information naturally over time, you allow curiosity to grow at a comfortable pace. This creates a sense of discovery rather than information overload. There is also strength in speaking only when you have something meaningful to contribute. Words gain value when they are chosen carefully. People often remember thoughtful comments more than long speeches. Speaking with intention demonstrates that you value quality over quantity. It encourages others to pay closer attention because they know your words are purposeful rather than automatic. Emotional control is another important part of this principle. Not every conversation will go exactly as planned. Someone may disagree with you, misunderstand your point, or respond with little enthusiasm. In these moments, remaining calm is more effective than reacting emotionally. A composed response communicates maturity. It shows that your confidence comes from within, rather than from controlling other people's opinions or behavior. Body language reinforces this calm presence. Relaxed posture, steady eye contact that respects personal comfort, and a natural pace of movement all support the impression of confidence. Restless habits such as excessive fidgeting, looking around constantly, or checking your phone can unintentionally suggest discomfort. Becoming aware of these habits helps you communicate greater ease without saying a word. Thoughtful communication also involves recognizing when to end a conversation gracefully. Not every interaction needs to continue indefinitely. Sometimes the best impression comes from leaving at a natural moment rather than stretching the conversation until it becomes forced. Respecting time, energy, and personal boundaries reflects confidence and consideration. Ultimately, genuine confidence is not measured by how many words you speak, but by the calmness behind those words. Comfortable silence, attentive listening, patient responses, and thoughtful self-expression create conversations that feel authentic rather than rehearsed. When you stop fearing every quiet moment and begin appreciating the balance between speaking and listening, your communication becomes more relaxed, respectful, and memorable. Instead of trying to dominate every interaction, you create space for real connection, allowing trust and understanding to grow naturally over time. Every conversation has an emotional rhythm. Some interactions feel energetic and engaging, while others feel forced or disconnected. One of the most valuable communication skills is learning to guide the energy of a conversation without trying to control the other person. Guiding the energy does not mean dominating the discussion, talking over someone, or steering every topic toward yourself. Instead, it means bringing calmness, positivity, and genuine interest into the interaction while remaining attentive to the other person's responses. When you contribute thoughtfully and respectfully, conversations often become more enjoyable for everyone involved. Many people enter conversations with a fixed script in mind. They memorize topics, rehearse clever lines, or decide in advance exactly how the interaction should unfold. The problem with this approach is that real conversations are unpredictable. Every person has different experiences, interests, and communication styles. If you become too attached to a script, you stop paying attention to what is actually happening in the moment. Strong communicators adapt. They notice the flow of the conversation and respond naturally instead of trying to force it into a predetermined direction. Being present is one of the simplest ways to improve any interaction. Presence means giving your attention to the conversation, rather than worrying about what to say next, or wondering how you are being judged. When your focus remains on the moment, your responses become more authentic because they grow out of what is actually being shared. People generally appreciate conversations where they feel heard and understood. This does not require extraordinary techniques. It simply requires attention, patience, and respect. Positive energy is not about pretending to be cheerful all the time. It is about bringing openness and curiosity into the interaction. A relaxed smile, appropriate humor, and a calm tone of voice can make conversations feel welcoming without becoming overwhelming. Positivity should never be forced. Genuine enthusiasm is more effective than exaggerated excitement because it feels sincere. Small moments of warmth often leave a stronger impression than dramatic attempts to entertain. Another important part of guiding conversation is recognizing emotional cues. Pay attention to changes in expression, tone, and engagement. If someone becomes animated while discussing a hobby, a recent achievement, or an interesting experience, allow that topic to continue naturally. If they appear uncomfortable or uninterested, consider shifting the conversation respectfully. Emotional awareness helps conversations feel collaborative rather than one-sided. Humor can also play a positive role when used appropriately. Gentle, inclusive humor often helps people relax and enjoy the interaction. However, humor should never come at another person's expense or make them feel uncomfortable. The best kind of humor grows naturally from the situation, rather than from trying to impress others. A light-hearted observation or a simple story can create a shared moment without putting pressure on anyone. Confidence also involves accepting that not every conversation will lead to a close connection. Different personalities, backgrounds, and interests mean that some interactions will naturally flow better than others. Rather than viewing this as failure, see it as a normal part of meeting new people. Respectful communication includes recognizing when the conversation has reached a natural stopping point and ending it graciously. Good communicators also know how to balance speaking and listening. If one person talks continuously without inviting the other to participate, the interaction can feel exhausting. On the other hand, saying very little while expecting the other person to carry the entire conversation can create unnecessary pressure. Healthy conversations involve mutual participation, where both people contribute ideas, experiences, and reactions over time. It is equally important to avoid trying to create interest through manipulation or emotional games. Authentic connection grows through honesty, respect, and consistency rather than through calculated strategies. Trying to manufacture mystery by being intentionally confusing or distant often creates misunderstanding instead of curiosity. People tend to trust those whose actions align with their words and who communicate with integrity. Your body language contributes significantly to the atmosphere of a conversation. Relaxed posture, attentive eye contact that respects comfort, and natural facial expressions communicate confidence and approachability. Small habits, such as constantly checking your phone, crossing your arms defensively, or appearing distracted, can unintentionally signal disinterest. Becoming aware of these nonverbal cues helps your communication feel more genuine. Patience is another essential quality. Not every meaningful conversation becomes memorable within the first few minutes. Relationships of any kind develop gradually. Trust, comfort, and understanding are built through repeated positive interactions rather than through one perfect conversation. Allowing this process to unfold naturally removes much of the pressure people place on themselves during first meetings. Perhaps the most important principle is remembering that every person deserves respect, regardless of whether a conversation develops into friendship, romance, or simply a pleasant exchange. Communication should never be treated as a contest to win or a performance to impress. It is an opportunity to understand another human being, while allowing them to understand you. When both people feel respected, heard, and comfortable expressing themselves, conversations become more meaningful. In the end, the strongest conversations are not defined by perfect words or clever techniques. They are shaped by authenticity, emotional awareness, and mutual respect. By staying present, adapting naturally, sharing your own perspective, listening with genuine interest, and treating the other person with kindness, you create an environment where connection can develop without pressure. Real confidence is not about controlling the outcome. It is about communicating honestly, remaining composed, and allowing every interaction to unfold with patience, respect, and genuine curiosity.